The most expensive mistake you will ever make isn't buying a bad stock or missing a crypto pump. It is signing your name on a 30-year document that turns a $500,000 pile of bricks into a personalized prison cell. Right now, as you scroll through real estate listings at 2 a.m., looking at 200 square foot boxes with laminate countertops from the Bush administration and beige carpets that smell like midlife crises, the system is whispering a lie. This is the American dream. In reality, that $500,000 starter home is a meticulously designed financial slaughterhouse. This video is not about whether a bank will give you a loan, it is about whether you can survive the aftermath of getting one. We are going to deconstruct the brutal mathematics of 2026, the numbers your mortgage broker is paid to hide, and the reality that is currently obliterating the middle class. The Matrix wants you leveraged, stressed, and compliant. This is the cheat code to see through the smoke. By the end of this analysis, you will understand exactly why 80% of households are walking into a trap they call homeownership. Welcome to Pinto Invests, Section 1, the mirage of the entry-level asset. In the current global financial hierarchy, $500,000 has become the entry fee for mediocrity. We are not talking about a glass-walled penthouse in Manhattan or a tech haven in Silicon Valley. We are talking about the baseline. In cities like Denver, Austin, or the outskirts of Atlanta, $500,000 buys you a box with a yard the size of a yoga mat. The average person looks at this and thinks, I just need to work harder. The elite looks at the ratio. The median U.S. household income sits at roughly $84,000. When you buy a $500,000 home on that salary, your house-to-income ratio is 6-to-1. Historically, a healthy ratio that didn't lead to societal collapse was 2.5-to-1. You are being asked to pay more for less, while earning a currency that loses value every time the Federal Reserve breathes. The system has shifted the goalposts so far that normal is now a synonym for insolvent. The visionaries understand that when the baseline is broken, the only way to win is to refuse to play by the standard rules. A starter home should launch your life, not anchor it to the bottom of the ocean. Section 2. The down payment delusion. Traditional financial wisdom, the kind your parents still repeat because they haven't checked inflation since 1994, suggests a 20% down payment. On a $500,000 home, that is $100,000 in liquid cash. Let us look at the hard truth. The median savings account in America holds $8,000. You aren't just short on your down payment, you are missing 92% of the required fuel. If you manage to save 10% of your gross income, which puts you in the top tier of disciplined savers, it would take you over 12 years to reach that $100,000. But here is the catch. Housing prices don't wait for you. By 2038, that same house won't cost $500,000 anymore. It will likely be $800,000. You are a hamster on a treadmill that is accelerating. This is why the system offers you a backdoor, the low down payment loan. But in finance, there is no such thing as a free lunch. There is only deferred pain. When you put down 3% or 5%, you aren't getting in early. You are starting your journey with maximum leverage and zero margin for error. Section 3. The parasite. Known as PMI. When you put down less than 20%, you trigger a financial parasite called private mortgage insurance, or PMI. Think of PMI as a security guard fee. But here is the twist. You are paying for a security guard to protect the bank from you. You are paying $200 to $400 every single month for a policy that offers you exactly zero protection. It is a poverty tax, a penalty for not being wealthy enough to afford the entrance fee. In the world of the 1%, we call this negative leverage. You are paying interest on an insurance policy that ensures you stay in debt. It is the definition of throwing money away, yet the average person accepts it as a standard cost of adulting. Every dollar paid to PMI is a dollar that isn't compounding in your brokerage account. Over 10 years, that is $36,000 vanished into the bank's profit margin. Section 4, the mathematical bloodbath, the real monthly burn. Let us do a deep dive into the monthly burn. Imagine you scrape together $50,000, 10% down. You have a $450,000 loan. At a 6.5% interest rate, your base payment is $2,150. But a house is a living, breathing entity that eats money. It does not just sit there, it decays. First, property taxes. Expect to pay $500 a month. Think of this as rent you pay to the government to keep the land you supposedly own. If you stop paying this rent, the government will take your house faster than any bank. Next, homeowners insurance, around $300 a month. As climate volatility rises, insurance companies are hedging their risks by draining your bank account. Then, the maintenance siphon. The 1% rule states you should budget 1% of the home's value per year for repairs. On a $500,000 house, that is $417 a month. The water heater does not care about your budget. The roof does not care if you just got a promotion. Finally, tack on that $300 PMI parasite. Your total monthly burn rate is $4,367. This is your fixed cost of existence before you have even bought a single loaf of bread. Stop for a second. Most people seeing these numbers will call them exaggerated because facing the truth is too painful for their ego. Are you one of the few who has the courage to look at your bank statement and realize the game was rigged from the start? Or are you still convinced that real estate always wins because a TikTok influencer told you so? Tell us in the comments. Are you a builder of actual wealth or just a glorified tenant of the bank? Section 5, the $150,000 poverty line. To afford that $4,367 payment without becoming a financial zombie, you need to follow the 28% rule. This rule states that housing should not exceed 28% of your gross income. To hit this target, you need a household income of $187,000 per year. Even if you use the bank's lenient and frankly predatory 43% debt-to-income ratio, you still need $150,000. Only 15% of American households earn this much. This means the American dream is now a luxury product intended for the top decile of earners, yet it is being marketed to the bottom 90% as a necessity. When 85% of people are trying to buy a product they cannot afford, you aren't looking at a stable market. You are looking at a financial suicide cult. Section 6, the case of the Johnsons, the illusion of the upper middle class. Let us look at a real-world scenario. Meet Mark and Sarah, the Johnsons. They earn $160,000 combined. On paper, they are the elite middle class. They drive clean SUVs, they have the $500,000 house, and they post photos of their granite kitchen on Instagram. But let us look behind the curtain at the vivid suffering the camera doesn't catch. Their take-home pay after the IRS, state taxes, and basic 401k contributions is roughly $9,500 a month. The house takes $4,367, nearly 46% of their take-home pay. The commute takes $1,050, 2 car payments and insurance because you can't walk anywhere in the suburbs. The degrees take $600, student loans for the very jobs they need to pay for the house. The fuel for life takes $200, groceries and utilities. After the basics, they are left with $2,283. That sounds okay to a child, but to a visionary, it is a nightmare. That $2,083 has to cover clothes, medical copays, home repairs, and the psychological need to occasionally leave the house so they don't lose their minds. They haven't put a single dollar into a high-yield investment or a rainy day fund. Mark and Sarah are high-income homeless. They live in a golden cage. The bars are made of mortgage documents and the lock is a 30-year amortization schedule. They don't own the house. The house owns their time, their stress, and their future. When the check engine light comes on, Mark feels a pit in his stomach. When Sarah sees a $35 fee for a school field trip, she has to check the banking app. This isn't wealth. This is high-level survival. Section 7, the predator-prey dynamic. Why does nobody tell you this? Because the housing industry is an ecosystem of predators designed to keep the average person in a state of perpetual debt. The bank, they don't want you to pay off the house. They want the interest. In the first 10 years of a mortgage, you are barely touching the principal. You are just paying rent to the bank. You are a source of recurring revenue for Wall Street. The real estate agent. Their commission is a percentage of the sale price. They have zero incentive to tell you a house is overpriced. To them, you are a transaction, not a human being with a future. The system. A man with a 30-year mortgage and 2 car payments is a man who doesn't quit his job. He doesn't start a business. He doesn't protest. He is a compliant battery for the economic machine. The system is designed to get you into the house, not to ensure you can afford to live in it. Once you sign, you are trapped. You cannot simply quit your mortgage when the market turns. You are tethered to that asset regardless of your happiness or your health. Have you ever felt that 2 a.m. panic? That cold sweat where you realize that despite your good salary, you are barely keeping your head above water? You're not alone, but most people are too embarrassed to admit it. Share your story. How much of your sanity is being consumed by the walls you live in? Let the community know what the true cost of your dream has been. We are here to speak the truths that society ignores. Section 8. The Elite Pivot. The Strategy of the 1%. The visionaries understand a fundamental truth. Equity is not wealth. If you have $100,000 of equity in a house but you cannot afford to take a vacation or buy a quality steak without checking your credit limit, you are poor. Real wealth is liquidity and margin. If the math doesn't work, the elite move is to walk away. First, rent and invest. Renting is not throwing money away. It is buying a put option on your lifestyle. It limits your liability. If the roof leaks, it's the landlord's problem. You take the $1,500 a month you would have wasted on PMI, maintenance, and extra interest, and you pump it into the S&P 500 or a Bitcoin position. Second, geo arbitrage. Why pay $500,000 for a starter box in a failing suburb when you can buy a mansion in a secondary market or an emerging international hub for $200,000? Third, the 3-army strategy. Divide your capital. Army 1 protects you, cash reserves. Army 2 feeds you, income assets. Army 3 builds your empire, growth investments. A $500,000 mortgage often kills all 3 armies simultaneously, leaving you defenseless. Section 9, the psychology of adulting. As a trap society has rebranded financial desperation as adulting, being house poor is seen as a rite of passage. Eating ramen in a $500,000 house is called building equity. Working 60 hours a week at a job you hate just to pay for a kitchen you're too tired to cook in is called responsibility. This is collective insanity. There is no trophy for owning a house that makes you miserable. The American dream was built on the idea that homeownership would be a foundation for wealth, not a weight that drags you to the bottom of the ocean. If your dream requires you to sacrifice your mental health, your marriage, and your children's future, it isn't a dream. It's a nightmare with a nice lawn. The elite understand that the house is the result of wealth, not the cause of it. The average person buys the house to look wealthy. The rich buy the assets that eventually pay for the house. One is a slave to the bank, the other is the master of their time. The numbers do not have a heart, but they are about to break yours if you don't pay attention. We are living through a structural disconnection between wages and assets. The math is screaming at you to stop, but the culture is whispering at you to buy now or miss out. Remember, the 1% make decisions based on math, while the average make decisions based on social pressure. In a world of falling standards, being realistic is the ultimate competitive advantage. As for those of you still watching, here is the final hard truth. The reason you feel so much pressure to buy a home right now is because the people who already own them need exit liquidity. They need a new generation of buyers to overpay so their own equity stays high. Don't be someone else's retirement plan. If you are earning less than $140,000 and looking at a $500,000 house, stop. You are about to trade the next decade of your freedom for a granite countertop. Wait, build, invest. Buy when the math makes you rich, not when it makes you a prisoner. If you have stayed until the end, it means you are ready to wake up and join the 1%. Comment the secret password, "I am awake," below to let me know you have decoded the system. The matrix is deep, but the exit door is always open for those who can do the math. Watch this next video on the screen to learn how to build a portfolio that buys the house for you rather than the house buying your soul. I'll see you in the next one. This is Pinto Invests.